Good afternoon, Chair Gunter and Committee. My name is Elizabeth Phillips, and I'm in town here from Dallas, Texas, although I lived in Atlanta during my middle school years and have so many fond memories of growing up in Georgia. But today I'm going to share about some darkness that remains in this state, and I thank you for your support as I try to get through this. It's emotional, but it's very important. I'm here to speak on behalf of my late brother, Trey, the namesake of this bill. I adamantly support HB 1187 named in his honor. First, I want to thank bill author Representative Hong, the additional sponsors on this bill, and especially Governor and First Lady Kemp for making the protection of children a priority in this state. Georgia is now part of a national movement, joining states like Tennessee, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri that say enough is enough. The silence of childhood abuse survivors in state civil courts is no longer for sale or up for negotiation. My late brother Trey was groomed and sexually and spiritually abused from the age of 7 to 17 by a serial sex offender named Pete Newman, a camp director at Kanakuk Ministries based in Missouri, but with programs around the country and world. Atlanta, especially, is one of Camp Kanakuk's largest markets. While Trey eventually saw his perpetrator sentenced to 3 life terms in Missouri in 2010, Trey was silenced in a civil settlement with Kanakuk that included a restrictive NDA when he sought to hold others involved accountable. Due to this NDA lawfully hushing Trey and so many other John Does from talking about what happened to him and everyone involved in the institutional cover-up, there was never justice or true accountability. No one was fired or terminated as a result of this abuse, and the same leadership is in place today. His NDA, which I was finally able to see for the first time in September 2025 after we passed Trey's law in Texas, was extremely intimidating and made him scared to share about his trauma, even in clinical and therapeutic settings. Because of Kanakuk's intimidating legal tactics and the NDA attached to settlement dollars Trey needed for healing, I have learned more about my brother's abuse and his death than I knew in his life. He died by suicide in 2019 because he wasn't allowed to have a voice, and as anyone in psychology knows, that inhibits healing. A few days before he died by suicide, he told a therapist, "They will always control me and I'll never be free." He was 28 years old. My brother played NYO baseball in Chastain Park. He was a soloist for the Atlanta Boys Choir. He was beloved and talented and brilliant and had such a bright future ahead of him. Instead, his life was ruined by Kanakuk's institutional abuse on top of the child sexual abuse that led to his death of despair. We now know many other suicides associated with Kanakuk abuse, so this is a matter of life and death. This is an urgent matter of public safety and concern. I often say Trey had 3 abusers. First, the direct perpetrator. Secondly, the institution who knew of Newman's misconduct and promoted him anyways. And lastly, the system that failed him. The short statute of limitations on child sexual abuse and trafficking cases forced Trey to file civil litigation before he was ready, allowing NDAs and also barring victims from the courts due to short SOLs makes for a hopeless situation. But today, this committee hearing is bringing hope. This room is packed because survivors are finally able to have a venue to be heard in Georgia. Georgia is making a loud and clear statement that this state stands with survivors and wants to hold bad actors accountable. Without Trey's law, civil settlements for child sexual abuse, sexual assault, and trafficking cases can include an NDA as a matter of standard practice in personal injury law. This is widespread, and we must give victims their voices back when they've already endured the unimaginable. With your help and other legislators' support, Georgia can make a strong statement to survivors that they matter more than a liable institution's reputation, and that misusing NDAs initially created to protect trade secrets, not trauma secrets, are no longer acceptable in the great state of Georgia. Since Trey's law passed in Texas and Missouri, by the way, unanimously and with full bipartisan support, the floodgates have opened. We launched the hashtag #TruthSetFree, and I have heard from countless survivors of sexual abuse across the country and world who have been lawfully hushed in civil court. Georgia was the first state where a governor has reached out to me and said this is a priority for him and the First Lady. I cried after I got that call because I finally felt momentum. I felt that lawmakers care and they want to hear survivors' stories and protect victims' voices by eradicating the misuse of NDAs in these horrific situations. I'm with you, Georgia, and I stand with the many survivors who would like to testify today. Let's break the cycle of shame-induced silence that predators rely on. Let's choose to act upon victims' cries for justice and freedom of speech so that they can have the freedom to heal. House Bill 1187 ensures that any clause or agreement intended to conceal the details of childhood sexual abuse is void and unenforceable as a matter of public policy. I'll end with this. There's a quote that says, "Shame dies when stories are told in safe places." By passing Trey's law in Georgia, you are transforming the legal landscape of this state into a safe place for survivors to heal, for darkness to come to light, and for Trey's life and legacy to matter. Let's set truth free. Thank you, and I'm willing to take any questions.
Okay.